Will A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles be traded in 2026, the next one universal year? Find out next on this episode of Numbers Matter. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love, family. Welcome back to Numbers Matter. This is podcast episode 23. And tonight we are talking sports astronumerology. So today we're going to be talking about A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. There's been a lot of controversy going on surrounding A.J. Brown and his frustrations with the offense. And people are questioning, does he want to be a Philadelphia Eagle? And the way that he's been carrying on, he may not want to be. And his numbers prove that he may not be. So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into AJ Brown and his numbers. So we're going to go through it. We're going to evaluate his numbers and we're going to see what we think based on what his numbers and what cycle he is in. This is Sports Astro-Numeralytics. And I love breaking down how these players' birthday and all of that come together to reveal their energy and what they're going through at the time. So, we were successful in predicting the Super Bowl win for the Eagles. So we're continuing our legacy with the sports numeralytics. I want to thank all of our new subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. This is Numbers Matter. If this is the first time that you're tuning in to Numbers Matter, this is the podcast where culture meets consciousness. So we will decode things in the culture and things like that and do interviews and things like that about astronumerology. So welcome. If you're new, if you are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification. And make sure you like this video and share it with someone who loves sports, okay? So now that I got that out the way, let me get the slides up here so we can get started. All right. Well, that's up there. Okay. So this is Numbers Matter, guys. It's episode 23, and we're going to be talking again about A.J. Brown getting traded in 2026. Now, what's interesting about this picture that I chose, it's A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley in the picture. Now, if you ask me, I think a lot of this that AJ Brown is going through is started when Saquon Barkley got here. Because prior to that, he was making good catches. He was a part of the offense. And then that Super Bowl year, Saquon had his 2000 run game. And that means that the wide receivers aren't going to see as much production. And this is when you started to see AJ Brown kind of start to unravel. So we're going to get into it and we're going to find out how his numbers play a pivotal role in his unraveling. Okay, so let's get on to the next slide. And it's so funny, I have 11 slides and he wears number 11 and he's got a lot of 11 going on with him too. All right. So let's get into it, guys. Sports astronumerology lytics. So we're going to be decoding the player's energy and his chemistry. We're going to be looking at their cycles, the big three cycles. We're going to be looking at his personal energy factor and his up cycle. We're going to be looking at his pinnacle cycles. And we're really going to look at where he's at right now. We're going to be looking at his, of course, his if and his and. That's his individual frequency, which is just his birthday number. And we're going to be looking at his and, his astronumeric descriptor. We know that is the cosmic code that relays all of your very personal energy, astronumerically speaking. All right, and then we're going to get into Whammy, which is something that I'm introducing to the family tonight. So Whammy stands for your wants, abilities, your must, and your individuality. And that relates to your soul urge, your expression, your life path, and your individual frequency, which is your birthday number. So I call that your core four in numerology. And I've come up with a system called Whammy, where we can compare your core four and we ask about 6 questions that are interchangeable about how does your whammy interact with each other, and is it favorable to you, is it not favorable connections, are there things that you can see through that where you need to do shadow work or where you need to strengthen certain areas. So that's what the whammy can tell us. So I'm very excited to be unveiling that tonight. All right, so let's get straight into it. We're going to look at AJ's lytics. This is a snapshot of his lytics. So AJ Brown, of course, he is a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's the wide receiver. He's 28 years old right now. He turned 28 this year. So right now, he's actually switching cycles right now. So this is very interesting because the age that he is, he's actually right on the cusp and the precipice of switching his big three cycle. Also, his of course, everyone's up cycle switching, but he is right there where his pinnacle is switching. So he is one of those interesting people where the pinnacle and the big three cycle, at least the first one, are switching at the same exact time. So this is why I think why we see a lot of the way that he's acting out and a lot of what he's doing, the energy doesn't lie. And the transition that he's going through within these cycles are contributing to his kind of outspoken way that he's approaching this situation with his frustrations. So we're going to get into that. Of course, he is a Cancer. He's born on June 30th, 1998. June 30th is actually the same birthday as Mike Tyson. So that should give you an idea of his emotional bandwidth. So his individual frequency is a 3. His key numbers are the 3, 2, and 7, born in the Cancer period. His and is water sign fire number. And of course, we know that is emotional, sensitive, proactive passion. He's a proactive achiever. And then his whammy numbers are 5, 6, 8, and 3, but we're going to get into that on the next slide. And right now, again, we were just talking about his cycles. This is his big three cycle. So his big three cycles are his formative cycle would be a 6. That's the cycle that he's coming out of right now and transitioning into his second cycle, which is dominated by the 3, which is his individual frequency. So already we see where and why some of this energy is coming about with him. And then his last cycle, of course, is at 8. So right now he's 28 years old. So he's shifting into that 3 cycle. And we're going to get into that in a little bit about what that means. And then his personal energy factor is a 9. So he is a cosmic universalist. So he's always in lockstep with the universe. So when it's going great for him, it's great. But when it's not going so great, it's not so great. And I think we've seen that through some of his behavior and some of the things that he's done. When he's high, he's really high, but when he's low and frustrated, it shows and he acts out. And we're going to see all of that through his numbers today. So again, his personal energy factor is a 9, so that means he's in a 9, he's in a 9 up cycle, a 9 universal and personal cycle. And then next year he's going to be heading into his 1 universal year and his 1 personal year. Now this is pivotal because your pinnacles and your big three cycle change when your personal year cycle restarts at 1. So it can be up through the time frame, but it doesn't really the change doesn't take effect until you really head into that 1 personal year, and that's going to be 2026 for AJ. So everything that he's going through right now is all the cusp energy of his big 3 cycle changing from a 6 into a 3. So he's transitioning from that 6, from a cycle of dealing with the home, the family, and the responsibilities and duty that way, and balancing things. And he's heading into a 3 cycle where it's going to be more self expressive, more artistic, showing more of his talents, more self expressive, expanding his network, business and personal, improving upon himself. And also, that 3 brings with it some emotional extremes and some overindulgences. And we know that 3 is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter likes to magnify anything it touches, whether it's for the good or the bad. So I think too that he's kind of gotten himself into this, and it's gotten kind of bigger than he thought it would get. So I also think that's happening too. So that's just touching on his cycles. And then we're going to be talking about his pinnacle, where he's at. So right now he's on the precipice to enter into his second pinnacles and challenge cycle. His first one was a 9-3, and now he's entering into an 11-5. And then it's interesting, we're going to talk about his main challenge, which is always the third challenge. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But for now, let's look at his in his if, looking at his cosmic code. So he is a water sign fire number. He's a Cancer 8 person. So that Cancer we know is feminine, it's cardinal water. So he's great at beginning things. He's a little bit vulnerable emotionally, he's sensitive, and he's easily hurt. And we see this through his actions and through his interactions with the team. These types of people need safe havens. They need like their own space and their own time to be alone so they can internalize the emotions and the feelings that they've gone through so they can kind of deal with them themselves. He's probably an emotional overload going through the season. And these people can be needy and overly dependent and unable to function really unless someone needs them, and they act out from their emotions. So look at what's going on. The team seemingly doesn't need him and he's acting out in his emotions, right? So he really is unable to function. Sometimes, cancers, they're unable to function unless people need them. That's their love language. They thrive on people needing them, they thrive on people dependent on them. So when the team seemingly doesn't need him, he acts out from emotion. So this is all very prevalent through his numbers so far. Now let's look at his how do I have that he's a Cancer 8? He's a Cancer 3. We're gonna fix that. He's a Cancer 3 person. I think I put Cancer 8 because he's a life path 8. But, that's how the numbers go sometimes. But he's a Cancer 3 person. So that 3, so now we talked about his sign. Now let's talk about his number because this is what makes your cosmic code, your if and your and. And his number is a number 3. So that number is masculine, fire. And then number 3 is like joy expressed in voice and color and creation. The number 3 is the number of the artist, it's self-expression, it's expansion, it's optimism, it's positivity, it's cheerfulness, it's joy. And under Jupiter's rulership, 3 overflows with vision and optimism, right? So this vibration cannot be contained. Threes radiate wherever they go and they refuse to be restrained. So this is what we see him acting out a lot of this in his outbursts that he's been having online. So this is the breakdown of his name. So we didn't get into the full name yet, but we're going to just look at the breakdown of his name. So right now we're looking at his name lytics to see kind of what's going on with him. What are his skills? What is his strengths and weaknesses? So the ones in green are his strengths and the ones in red are his actual karmic lessons. So we're just going to read the strengths and the karmic lessons for AJ Brown. So he has above average twos in his name, and usually with above average twos, that can denote a usually oversensitive and overly emotional person. They may be too dependent on others. They are a natural collector of things. That's neither here nor there in relationship to AJ Brown. But people with a lot of twos or names, they could be low key psychic. They're very observant and they love details and concepts, but they are overly sensitive and they can be petty about small things. So when you have above average twos in your names, those are the traits. And then when you have above average threes in your names, you're very ambitious, positive, self expressive, and creative, popular, artistic, confident, optimistic. You have a strong need to be popular, a social butterfly, you're talkative, and you're dictatorial. And we see that through his actions. He's wanting to dictate the way that the team offense is being ran. He wants everything ran through him. So we see that through his numbers. And then his karmic lesson is a 4. And that means that he's unable or slow to accept change, very rigid or narrow minded, is moody and critical, especially of himself and others. He avoids hard work, concentration, organization, and attention to detail. So he could be lacking some of those things. Not saying all of them, but some of those he could be lacking. And it does sound like some of the things that he's doing right now. And then his other karmic lesson is a 7. And when that's your karmic lesson, you have a need to look beneath the surface on all matters. You have little or no concern for spirituality or religion. Could be a lack of faith, could be superstitious or pessimistic. So I think with him, it's more maybe of a lack of faith and pessimism here when we're talking about how he's handling things with his team. So that's his name lytics breakdown. So let's get on to the next slide. That's just like a bonus, just to, so we can see kind of how his temperament is. So let's get into the whammy. So the whammy compatibility, this is very something near and dear to me, something that I really just came up with one day. I asked the questions and I wrote the grids out, and I've been doing it ever since, and it's been working pretty great. I built a whole algorithm to score these and weigh them, and I'll talk about the weighting and the scoring system in a little bit. So the whammy is your wants, your abilities, your must, and your individuality, like I said in the beginning. So your wants is your soul urge, because we know the soul urge is what your heart truly desires, what your motivation, what do you want out of life. Your abilities are your expression. That's your name. Your full name is your skills, talents, and abilities. It's what you're good at. It's what you're able to do, right? What you're able to do to help you along your life path. Your must is your actually life path. And I call it the musts because these are things that you must learn. These are things that you must learn to do and must learn not to do. So that's really what the life path is. It's your must lessons of life. And then your individuality, which is your birthday number, your individual frequency. We know that's the frequency that's with you day in and day out. That's your pulse. That's how you show up every day. That's your frequency at the core. That's who you are. So the questions then that we ask with Whammy are, do you want to do what you're able to do? Right? And then are you able to do what you want to do? So those ones flip back and forth. Okay. And then do you want to do what you must do? And then is what you must do what you want to do? Right? Or are you able to do what you must do? And what you must do, are you able to do it? So with those three things, those show the interaction of how your whammy shows up with each other, how your soul urge merges with your expression, your abilities, and your life path. Is your life path the things that you want to do naturally? You know, it may not be. So these are the things that we look at here in Numeralytics. And then with the individuality piece, where that fits in is, how does your individuality align with your wants, your abilities, and your musts? So how does it support them individually, or how does it hinder them individually? And once you find that out, then you can do that work to get through that. So that's what whammy is. I hope you guys understood that. And if not, you'll see it a little bit more as we go along. And boom, we have a whammy chart right here. So again, the whammy, hold on, let me see if I can get rid of that down. Oops, there we go. So again, here we are. Here's our whammy chart for AJ Brown, his comparison. And again, like I just told you, the whammy is the soul urge, the expression, the life path, and individual frequency, your core four. So when we look at AJ Brown's whammy, and what you're looking at on the screen is how we actually score your system, and we score it by four metrics. We score it by number, then we go by element, then we look at the planet, and then we look at the gender, so the polarity, if you will. Okay, so for AJ Brown, let's start with his wants. What's his soul urge? What does he want? His soul urge is a 5 out of his whole name, and that's an air number. Okay, ruled by the planet Mercury. It's masculine, and the short descriptor for that is the communicative explorer messenger, and the keys to that is change, freedom, and opportunity. His expression, his abilities is a 6. That's an earth number, ruled by the planet Venus. That's feminine. So that's the short descriptor, is that's the magnetic cosmic guardian. And the keys to that is family, love, duty, responsibility, right? His must is an 8. That's an earth number. That's Saturn. It's a feminine gender, very receptive. And the short descriptor here is powerful, focused executive. The keys here are structure and material wealth. And his individual frequency is a 3. Of course, we just talked about that. That's the fire element. Jupiter, it's masculine, ruled by Jupiter, and it's masculine. And that short descriptor is expressive, creative, artistic. And those keys are going to be joy, expansion, and ambition. So now let's see how his whammy adds up and stacks up against each other. All right. So we're going to be looking at that whammy and how it stacks up against each other. So let's look at his first one. So again, his soul urge is a 5. And with that 5 soul urge, you guys, this 5 here, and there's a couple other 5s along his path that we'll discuss, which is one of the main reasons why I do not think he'll be a Philadelphia Eagle in 2026. I do think the Eagles would trade AJ Brown in 2026. I think AJ Brown wants a change. His energy will be calling for a change. His personal year that he's going into will be calling for a change. He'll be wanting something new. And the Pinnacle cycle that he's entering, a challenge he's entering, will be calling for change, and he'll be challenged by change. So this is interesting that his soul urge is a 5, because with that soul urge 5, the heart really wants freedom. It wants change and it wants new opportunities. So he's not built to stay stuck in one box forever. He wants change and variety. Especially, he wants personal freedom in every endeavor that he does. He craves for constant new activity. He said this so much as, let me get the quote that he said, because hold on. I wanted to make sure that we touched on all of this. So I'm going to read the quote that he said. Let's look at the quote that he said a few days after winning Super Bowl 59. He said that he posted that he was not satisfied with the victory, stating that his thrill comes from dominating and that the journey is what he loves the most. So right then and there, he's telling us that he is never satisfied. He's always craving constant new activity. And that's a part of his soul urge. So, all soul urge 5s need to cultivate loyalty, patience, and steadiness of purpose. That's really what they need to cultivate. And just the numbers don't look great for that. So let's get into the comparison. So the first one we're looking at is the soul urge and the expression. So this is, are you able to do what you want to do? And is what you want to do what you're able to do? Okay. Are you able to do what you want to do? And is what you want to do what you're able to do? So when we look at these two numbers, we're comparing a number 5 with a number 6. Now the 5 and 6 number wise, they're not like opposition numbers or anything like that, but they are two totally different energies. And that score that he gets is conflicting here, because really he wants change, he wants freedom, he wants motion. But the 6, his abilities is calling for him to be responsible and to be the one that is the bigger person and make adjustments for other people and have a responsibility to and a duty to home and family and community. So those are conflicting energies. So for AJ Brown, for his first question and his whammy, is he able to do what he wants to do? Based on his numbers and his energy, no. And does he want to do what he's able to do? No. He wants to be free. He doesn't want to be tied down. So at the base of it, that's a conflicting answer. So now let's look at the next one. This is going to be his expression in comparison with his life path number. So are you able to do what you must do? And is what you must do what you're able to do? Right? So when we look at this, the first number is the 6. His expression is a 6. That's what his full name adds up to. And his life path is an 8. So these are harmonic because a 6 and 8 are both earth numbers. The 6 is the magnetic cosmic guardian. His natural attracts people. He's able to hold down family and be dutiful and responsibility to the family. And his life path demands that he learn structure, discipline, and material wealth and management. So money, contracts, and power dynamics are part of his curriculum. We can say that's a part of his community. That structure, that discipline, all of those, the 6 and the 8 have in common. Because the 6 has structure and that stable discipline. They're both very practical and pragmatic numbers. Okay. So now let's look at, is what he wants to do is what he must do. So this is his soul urge versus life path. So there's a little conflicting energy here, because again, that soul urge, he wants freedom and movement. Okay. But the life path is calling for him to master his power and create and build structure and material wealth and have power and organize and lead with integrity. Okay. But that five is the complete opposite energy of that. The five wants to be free. It wants to move around. It's curious. It wants to learn everything. It wants to touch everything. It wants to feel everything. It's not necessarily want to be bound to building structures and things like that. So he has some conflict there with what his soul urges and what his life path is. So, guys, this is how this can show up for all of us. So, if you want to know this about yourself, you need to reach out to me at numeralytics.net to get your personal codex so you can find out how your energy shows up. Okay. And then when we look at this, is does his individual frequency align with what he wants to do, what he must do, and what he's able to do? So for the most part, yes. For the one, for the 3 and 5, even though 3 and 5 are opposition numbers, they're very similar energies, and that's why they're opposition numbers. But what that tells me is that he can be very extreme in his emotions, emotionally extreme or overindulgent emotion wise, and overindulgent mentally. And that's of the senses, of the five senses. We see this playing out in the way that he's acting out. We see that playing out. So that's neutral because some of the other placements help that score just to become neutral. Because without those other placements, that score becomes a conflicting score. And because those two energies, they're so similar, they can compete with each other. And then does his individuality align with what he must do? So that's his number 3 and his number 8. And those two numbers are harmonic. So, what he wants to do and what he must do. He has the artistic expression with that 3 to master his power and structure. He can do it, but he just has to focus. He has to stop scattering and wasting his energy. And he's really got to stop referring everything to himself, which is really a part of a lot of the energy that he's going through and that we see through some of the challenges that he has that show up later on in his challenge. Okay. So this was his whammy. So again, when we look at it, his patterns show 3 harmonic, 2 conflicting, and 1 neutral across the score of 6. So he has some shadow work to do. AJ has some self work to do. He definitely has some work to do with a lot of his challenges, what they are, and the way that he shows up with his team, and the way that he acts out through his emotions may not be for the betterment of the team. And the Eagles are a pretty respectable organization, and they don't like all this kind of stuff going on that's just distractions really at the end of the day, especially when a team's winning. So it really does show that he's being selfish in a way. So we'll get into that. We'll get into it. So we see that right there. Let's get into the next slide. That was his whammy. So he doesn't have the best score. We all work with what we got. So now let's look at his pinnacle and challenges cycle. So again, AJ, we're not going to go through all of the pinnacles and challenges, guys, because it would go too long. We're just really focusing in on where he's at right now. Okay. And what's going on with him right now? Right now, he's 28 years old. He's a life path 8, and these are his cycle numbers. So just to explain, to get the pinnacle, you take, to get the intervals, you take the number 36 and you subtract your life path from it. Okay. And that's the age that the first one goes up to. That's the start. Then you add 9 onto that to get the second pinnacle age bracket. And then you add 9 on that to get the third. And then it's 9 more till you get to the last age. Okay. So that's how you get the pinnacle and challenges cycle. So these cycle run right along your big 3 cycle, but they don't run exactly parallel to it all the time, especially the second and the third pinnacle. So sometimes the first pinnacle can line up with the first pinnacle and challenge change. And in this case, it does, because he's 28. He turned 28 this year. So his first cycle of the big 3 goes from 1 to 28. This is when he's entering into his productive cycle. Okay. He's also happens to be transitioning into his second pinnacle right now. Okay. Because he's 28 and this is where his pinnacle changes. And what's so interesting is, since he is a cosmic universalist and he's running in lockstep with the universe, this is all happening right now, you guys. He's literally on the cusp because his one personal year starts in January. And we saw in October, his shenanigans started at the end of September. And then So we see that was the cusp of him going into his one personal month, which remember, October is the preview cycle. So whatever happened in October is indicative of what's going to really happen next year. So we already seen going into October, he started his mess, right? We see the switch in the cycle change. So we see the first big cycle changing from a 6 into a 3. That can be some very messy energy, and that's what we see. He's being very self-expressive. We see all of that coming through and shining through right now with that 3. And then he's getting into this pinnacle right here. Okay. He's heading into a pinnacle cycle 11, which means spiritual elevation, illumination. Things are going to get a bit bigger for him. He's going to feel maybe a bit more nervous energy. So that may not be good because he's already very overly emotional and overly sensitive. And that 11 energy is big energy to handle. So, we may see him dropping back down to that 2, which is also indicative of him needing and learning how to work in a team. That's really what AJ Brown's main challenge in his life is. His main lesson and his main challenge is teamwork. See this number, this third one, this is his third pinnacle. Your third challenge is your main challenge. And that challenge lasts throughout your lifetime, not just during this period. This is felt throughout the lifetime. And then to note, his last challenge is also a 2. So you see, there's a lot of 2 energy in his lessons and in his challenges that he needs to learn. And this means he needs to learn how to work in a team. He needs to learn how to use tact and diplomacy when he's dealing with others. Because this is why he's in this thing now that he's going through, because he's not using tact, he's not using diplomacy, he's being overly emotional, and he's scattering his energy, wasting his energy, causing distractions when he's feeling like he's not needed or a part of the team. He's acting out through his emotions. So all of this stuff is his numbers. We showed a number. It shows that his numbers are just showing up on paper. It's showing up in real life and reality. So he's really showing this through of what he's going on. So this is what's going on. We're not going to get into everything, but just to know, like I said, the 11 that he's going into is going to be calling for him to step himself up. This is master visionary energy. He needs to step up and he needs to illuminate a light on others. And that's a light of positivity. That's that 3. He's a positive person. He's a cheerful person. He needs to tap more into the higher side of his numbers because right now he's exhibiting a lot of the lower energies of the 3. He's exhibiting the lower energies of the 2. And he's exhibiting the lower energies of that 5 also. And that 5 challenge is asking him to be less rigid. It's asking him to be more accepting of change and be more willing to change and deal with the changes that are going on with the team. So right now, that's what he's going to be dealing with when he's going into this next cycle. And this is why I really don't think that he's going to be an eagle, because everything that he's heading into a challenge cycle of change. This is an illumination cycle. It's 2 ones. So that's master number energy. So it's not really like a normal 2. It's like 2 ones. It's that first one that's the creative, original, wants to rise to the top. And then he's got the other one that's bridging the gap, that is asking him to learn how to work with another 1, right? And these are the things that we see him not doing. So he definitely got some lessons that he needs to learn here as we go along. So now let's look at it. This is how it looks, guys. This is where we are. This is where he is right here. He's literally right here on this cusp of this 2025 going into his second cycle. Okay. He's a life path 8. That's the school of power. So he's here to learn master. He's here to master authority. He's here to be ambitious and learn material responsibility. He's here to learn how to will his power with integrity. That's what life path 8 is here to learn. Material mastery, responsibility, ethical power. These are his lessons. So again, he is heading right into this challenge cycle of 5. And we'll get into it a little bit. So 11, of course, we know that's the master visionary. So this is going to be an era of high visibility for him. There's going to be pressure. There's going to be spiritual growth that he's going to need to have. And this is all going to be done through the spotlight. So he's going to have to learn how to use tact when he's dealing with these situations. He can't be going out there and talking all this mess and talking all this smack like he's doing, because the team will trade him. They will trade him. He's a great player, but he's not untradeable. No one's untradeable. Even Jalen is the quarterback. And a lot of this too, like I said, I think it's a lot of it is his instabilities with not feeling needed. I think that's a lot of it. And the selfish attitude of me first. And then the challenge 5 that he's going in again, that brings change and stability, movement, and it tests his freedom. So, this could mean changes with his contracts, a trade, injury, his lifestyle choices, his choices in the media. These things could backfire on him. So, this is what's going on. We already know 2 things for him that heading into this next Pinnacle cycle, his profile is going to get even bigger. And then he's going to have to learn how to navigate all of this change and decision about what he wants to do and where he really belongs. Because if he doesn't, he's going to end up getting traded. He's going to have to dig into the main challenge of his life, which is a challenge 2. And I want to talk about that right now. So we're going to talk about his main challenge, because this is a challenge that follows you throughout your whole life. And I really see this playing out with AJ. So I really want to talk about this real quick. So his main challenge is a 2. This is the challenge of sensitiveness. Okay. You find it difficult to work well with others. You're miserable in this challenge because you refer everything to yourself and your own feelings and your own emotions. And that's going to make you miserable. So these people can be petty, they can be small minded during this 2 challenge, and they could be very petty over the most minute detail. And little things become like these big, huge obstacles for them, which hinder and hurt them. And that's what I really think is happening with him. I think he got himself into this and it's gotten bigger than him. And now it's hurting him. These people tend to be impressionable. So he can probably be listening to people out in the national media that might be talking about his statistics. So he's basing his emotions off of that instead of just hankering down and doing what he needs to do to help make his team better for real, for real. Because all of this talking in the media and all that is not helping a team, especially when they're winning and they got a 7-2 record. So this challenge makes you refuse to forgive and forget meaningless things that other people do to you, and it makes you take everything to heart. And isn't this what he's doing? Like it just is. This is what he's doing. So he really needs to get with Astro Numerology so he can see that this is one of his challenges. He's got some shadow work to do. AJ's got a lot of work to do, and I don't know that the Eagles want to put up with that. So this is going to be very interesting to see how 2026 unfolds for him. So again, these people, they find it difficult to work with others because they think they're so self-important. They'd rather not risk working with others because they don't want to be slighted or hurt by others. So there's a lot that goes on with this. So what they really got to do, if you want to break out of this with your challenge and really learn how to master the challenge of the 2, you got to start referring everything to yourself. So that's the first thing he's got to do. He's got to start referring everything to himself. And he has to cultivate a broader outlook in life. And that means looking at it from a team perspective, not from an AJ Brown perspective. And he's got to use tact, he's got to be patient, he's got to be diplomatic with others. And he's not doing any of that. And he's being a crybaby. And that's one of the negative traits of the number 2. It's a crybaby. And you got to learn in this challenge that teamwork is necessary. So if you want to overcome this challenge, he's got to learn the power of teamwork and he's got to learn to work with everybody else and be tact and be diplomatic in his speech and his approach with how he deals with others. So yeah. And then, like I said, heading into that challenge 5 that deals with the use or misuse or abuse of freedom. So he's heading into that 5 challenge. So he's got a lot of energy that just screams that he is looking for a change. And again, he is going into a 1 personal year. So now let's look at his life path a little bit, because with that life path 8, I see some of this coming through with him too. So with life path 8, the strengths of that is they're very ambitious people, disciplined, very resourceful, and capable of leadership. Eights do thrive in a business and finance atmosphere. So anything like law or business or entrepreneurship, things like that. Really, it's hard for them to work with others at times, though. So that comes through with a lot that we're seeing with AJ Brown. So the challenges for the 8 life path is greed. Don't be greedy. And he's being a little greedy right now. because honestly, all of his seasons, he's gotten pretty good statistics. This is the first season where it's kind of dipped a little bit more because even in the season when Saquon came, he still had pretty good stats, but he was already exhibiting that he was unsatisfied at that point. So, the greed is a problem. The control issues are a problem for this Life Path 8. Materialism or misuse of power. And I feel like that's what he's doing. These people have to learn that just because you might be a leader doesn't mean that you just only serve yourself. You got to serve everyone, not just yourself. So that's the lessons that he has to learn. This is what he's going through right now. So let's get on with the slides. And then now I think we're getting into our personal energy factor. Yep, we're in our up cyclolytics. So looking at these up cyclolytics, we're just going to look at a little bit of his history coming through this NFL. So he got drafted in 2019. So what's interesting about how he got drafted, and it's indicative of some of his numbers, he was drafted in 2019. He was the second in the draft, the 51st overall pick. So that number two, again, that's his main challenge. And that six is his expression number. And then he spent 3 seasons with the Tennessee Titans. That's his individual frequency. He went to the Pro Bowl in 2020, and he was traded to the Eagles in 2022, which is a six universal year. And that six is his expression. So where he went to, and then after he got there in 2022, he went on to be successful. He went to the Pro Bowl 3 more times. The year that he came in 2022, the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl, but they lost against the Chiefs that year. So he had a great year, but toward the end of that year, that's when you started seeing a little bit of the acting out, but it didn't get worse until this season that we're in now. So then, he was a part of the 2024-2025 Super Bowl winning team. And I just want a little bit now touch a little bit on the negative aspects of his number because number threes can be cruel, they can be jealous, depressive, they can be critical, they can be whiners and worriers, they're dictatorial, they can be very depressive. And I know he's had issues with mental health in the past. They can be gossipers. They can be over extravagant or overindulge or overexpress things. They can be very vain or trivial and superficial. They can be very silly and prideful about things. So, these are a lot of things that we see him acting out with. They can have a lack of discipline and be very boastful. Again, and they can be hypocrites and they waste and scatter energy. And they can be very intolerant of others. They don't like restraint and they're not very tolerant of others when they're not getting their way. So this is a part of some of the negative traits that he's exhibiting right now. And it could be just like an over onslaught of energy that he's experiencing because he is in the middle of switching his pinnacle and his life cycle challenge. And he's switching into a very powerful pinnacle challenge going into that master number 11 challenge lesson. And he's going into a 5 challenge. So, this is a pivotal time for him, but he's got to learn that tact because that's his main challenge. He's got to learn how to deal with the media. He's got to learn how to be a teammate. Until he learns how to be a teammate, he's at risk of getting traded. Like he could really get traded because he's not being a teammate right now. So again, we're looking at the up cycle. So we know he started the rookie season. We got through all of that. So 2024 and 2025, and that 8 universal year and 9 universal year, respectively, he won a Super Bowl. And everyone had a pretty good year that year. So it's a shame that he's got to be acting out and doing all this kind of stuff. But like I said, my prediction for the 2026 season, I don't think that he's going to make it. I don't think that he's going to make it for the 2026 season. I think he is going to be traded. If he doesn't clean his act up and he doesn't start to act right and get his act together, I do believe he will be traded next year. Okay. And again, that's going to be the end of the presentation. Let me get it off the screen. If you want your personal codex report, let's see. Make sure you hit me up at numeralytics.net. Let me put the banner up here. First of all, I'm back on the screen. I want to thank everybody so much. I haven't been on Numbers Matter in a while, so I had to kind of get my feet back under me and get back into my groove of Numbers Matter. But I do have a new website. It's numeralytics.net. Then we have fashionfrequencylab.com where you can go purchase your frequency. You can hit me up. Make sure you're following me on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. It's at Numeralytics. You can hit me up on the moon line at 302-492-7722. And again, my new email address is Malinda@numeralytics.net. I want to really thank everybody who tuned in today. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following me. We're going to be pumping out more Numbers Matter videos. We're really getting back into the swing of things, heading into the one universal year. And I have a lot of good and interesting things coming up for you. We have a new podcast that we're going to be starting. So it's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you have understood this. It was clear. I hope. I know I kind of babbled through a lot of this, and that is what it is at this conjecture in life. But when we get a chance and when we look at this, like we said, he's got a lot of conflicting energy. I think the main things that are blocking AJ Brown right now are he's getting in his own way. He's letting like his lower side take over. He's not learning his lessons. He's not using teamwork. He's not using tact. He's not being diplomatic. He's not being optimistic and cheerful and joyful. I understand that he wants his stats to be at a certain, but there's a way to go about it. And you definitely don't go about it by, especially in Philadelphia. Like this is already like a sports crazy town, So like any little thing that you do, it's going to get looked at, it's going to get scrutinized. The radio station 94.1 WIP, that's all they've been talking about, like all day, every day, talking about AJ Brown. Was he going to get traded? Everyone thought he was going to get traded at the deadline, but he didn't. But I do think that there's a strong possibility that he could be traded next year. There was a conversation that he was made to have with Jeffrey Lurie the other day at practice on the practice field. So they said it was positive, and I think the Eagles don't want to trade him. So I think they want to work with him. But what they need to do then is they need to get a sports astronumerologist like myself that can come in and show them these assessments and let them see, hey, this is where some of the problem lies, is with this energy. So let's do things to work with your energy to get you back on track. And like, half the battle is knowing, once you know better, you can do better. So, hopefully that's what AJ Brown will do, if he had a astronumerologist like myself. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of Numbers Matter. We will be back very soon with another episode, and I'm going to be making a lot of announcements. So make sure you are subscribed and that you have hit that notification bell, because we have a lot of new things coming up for you in these upcoming last months of the year and going into the new year. So I want to say peace, love, and power to you. Again, reach out to me at numeralytics.net for your personal energy reading. Thank you so much. Peace, love, and power.
Queens up in your hood because it's essential. Triple the investment, stocks and bonds, build a nest egg. Comfortable life, seed safe at the rest place.